enables the Attorney General to create a 2S LGBTQI plus community safety zone.
A safety zone provided you're one of those letters. There's also a number that has appeared at the start. Is that like one of the characters?
To prohibit within 100 meters of the property any homophobic, transphobic act of intimidation, threat, offensive threats, offensive remarks, protest, disturbance, and distribution of hate propaganda.
In all that, the three things that are the most important are, one is the property. We don't know what they're talking about there, libraries. Number two is the demographic. And number three is, she said, you can't protest. So that's all this is doing.
Within the meaning of the criminal code. It also comes with it a penalty of $25,000 if prosecuted successfully.
$25,000 for an offensive remark. Bearing in mind, offensive is subjective. And look at the people they've assembled alongside this conference. You've got the young girl on the left-hand side, I'll let you know it's about kids. You've got the two individuals at the back to the left. So to state the obvious, they envisage that there will be protests against men being in close contact and interacting with other people's kids. Men who, by the way, are expressing their, they say gender, but that's part of their sexuality. Just right in front of, it's the smallest of kids, by the way. And what's their motivation for them as an individual? Like, I used to read when my kids were little, books there, we all do. If you've got kids, you read books to them. But yet, I've never had a desire once to ever read a book to another person's kid. And they're not educational books, from what I've seen. They're story books of questionable material. So this is an intentional move by the Canadian government to head off at the pass any parent that wants to protect their kids and raise their kids with the values of their family and their traditions. And the 100 metres and the $25,000 fine, that's just to make out like you can still protest and we're not shutting down your bank account. Whereas I doubt many working class people would have $25,000 in the bank. If they took that out, well, it's the same as shutting down your account. But if you're within the 100 metres, insults aren't barred. Offensive remarks aren't barred. It's only against that certain demographic of all those letters and looks like that number. If you're presenting as a heterosexual male, well, it's open season. People can insult you, say whatever they want. This is just ridiculous. I haven't been really heard too much about these drag queen story hours in the news or anything. They keep it pretty quiet. Now, here's an article from The Spectator. This was back in November last year, about 4 or 5 months ago. And they got off to a rocky start because, as it turned out, if you read this article, you got the URL at the top, a young gay guy who was protesting. It was too much for him. He got identified and got such a hard time, he ended up committing suicide. Poor bastard. And it's just unfortunate, but that was a big backfire on trying to introduce this crap into Australia. Yeah, it's bizarre what's going on in the States as well. You got mainstream beer companies putting some trans, don't know what it is, on the can. And apparently even Jack Daniels is starting to pander along as well. Now, what I read into that, look for the, I was just on Jeff Berwick's Dollar Vigilante on Rumble when he showed a few clips of Kid Rock. See, I think it was that one. I've been watching a lot of videos. Kid Rock shooting up the cans. And Ted Nugent was on Newsmax talking about it as well. So a lot of people are again, and they're forming organisations in the States to ring up these companies and say, you know, if you don't want to sell your product. But the problem they got, I was watching Jimmy Dore. Might have been on Jimmy Dore. I'll go to him often now. He said that they own about 20 different beer brands. So they've only put it on one of them. So they're just trying to introduce it. So they're really not going to lose profits. But even if they do, the same investors, the very small number of trillionaires that own a majority of shares in all of the big companies now, also have all the contracts with the government, with defence and pharmaceuticals, and they're in the public purse. So if anything drops off in the private sector, all they do, they own the media as well, is go to the government and start plundering the public purse. Just telling the politicians, all right, we need a top up of a couple of $100 billion here, give us your defence budget or whatever budget it's from. So it's coming from the people. So it's that sort of explains. It's the only way I can explain how they don't give a hoot about not selling that product with the trans crap on it, as well as what Jimmy Dore said. Anyway, it's getting mad. I thought this would just be a fad, but they're really digging their heels in. They're going hard. Now, here in Australia, after that rocky start, hopefully it'll get taken care of overseas before it really kicks off here, because it will get taken care of. People are not going to put up with it. The kids are a person's, most important thing. Just quickly, if you want to just hang around, I'm going to do a complete video on this. But when I look at who we are as a person, so it's clicked off now, but I think it's a bit interesting. The first thing you have to do is, it sounds selfish, but you got to look after yourself and your own needs before you can help anyone else. That's the first thing. So you start off, think of it as like a circle with concentric circles going out. Next off, you've got your kids and your wife and your kids, if you got that, or your immediate family if you're still single and young. That's your next kind of priority. And then outside of that, you've got friends, and then business comes into it, your work colleagues. We still haven't got to the government yet. They're not a priority in people's lives. And then you get to just the people that you don't know, who you would help, if everything's clear, no one else needs your help. Okay, I'll help someone if they're, get a bit of trouble. Then after that, right at the end, is helping police and government and all that, and doing what they want you to do. That's the last thing. That's the last priority. Yet, if you notice during COVID, they were telling you to get jabbed, jab your kids to protect someone you're never going to meet. In effect, pleasing them and not looking after your kids. And that's what they're doing with this trans crap. They want you to be have an allegiance with their version of society, and they're splitting, as everyone could see. They're dividing everyone up as far as they possibly can. It's like a pizza, not just into quarters, but into 100 pieces. That's how they want society to be. Kids against parents, and races against race, and age against other ages. It's just what they want to do, dice it all up. We can all see that. But just comes back to, and in the video, I've sort of started working on it. I just sort of show the concentric circle of how, that's in my opinion, how I look at things. And I think that's the most sensible and gives the best outcomes for yourself. So yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that on at the end. The last thing you care about is the rights of some man who wants to be in close proximity to your kids. But in fact, if you're in a shopping centre and a man happens to be, for an extended period, seems to be hovering around your kid in a toy store or something, well, the alarm bells start ringing. And these guys, they're not only in close proximity, and the government's protecting them in Canada. This is madness. All right, that's my 2 cents worth. That's it for this one.